Well, it's actually been a month to the date since I last put out an episode of Daily Masonic Progress, and some of you have probably been wondering what on earth is going on. And for a daily podcast, having a month without content kind of seems like, ooh, something's up. And I tell you what, there have been a few things that have gone on in my life over the last month, and I'm going to share with them. So there's some big changes to my working situation. I've had a holiday, and I did have a plan to publish content during the holiday, but we'll talk about that. We've also had the grand installation for the United Grand Lodge of New South Wales and ACT, where we installed a new Grand Master, and that was a huge event with brethren from not only all across Australia, but overseas. I'll share some information there. And the work update will sort of give you a little bit more about why it's been a bit hard to maintain the daily commitment. So let's start with the work situation. Now, I had been looking to change jobs. Now, I don't work in Freemasonry. I don't get any money from Daily Masonic Progress. Everything that I do for Lodge is completely unpaid and voluntary, including this podcast and newsletter. I have a normal job, surprisingly, and some people can't believe that I actually have a normal job. Everyone thinks that, well, Freemasonry's rich and abundant in funds and everyone gets lots of money from it, which is far from the truth. So over the last sort of what's now 10 months, but over the course of this year, I have been looking to continue to progress my career. I had a couple of years ago moved from sales into the tech side of business, into the tech side of the business I was working for, which was a large real estate technology company. And I'd moved from sales into tech, and I wanted to continue to grow and develop in my career and take the next step. After all, some of the lessons of Freemasonry are all about thinking about your next step, continuing to learn, continuing to grow, continuing to develop, and making progress. And I felt like I reached a point where I was a little bit stagnant in my career and wanted to start, continue my growth. So I was looking for a new role, both internally and when my primary focus was getting a new role internally within the same company. And I had gone for several positions and just wasn't able to be successful in them. They either went with other internal candidates, which were more suitably qualified than myself, or they went with external candidates who were a better fit for the role. And that's cool, completely get it. So then I started to look externally and see what would happen, see what was out there in the market. And in this process of looking externally, the company announced a restructure to its product and technology business. And I was working as a technical business analyst within that division, and I ran what we call a scrum team. So I had a team of 6 developers. They weren't mine directly. They reported to an engineering manager, but I ran that engineering team. I acted as both the product manager, the solution designer, the business analyst, as well as the scrum master. So I was holding 4 roles. The only thing I didn't do was people manage the engineers in the team, or look after the technical solution behind how we implemented the solutions to the product that I was developing. And what happened was I got an email at 7 o'clock in the morning, product and technology business update at 11 o'clock. So I go into the office and the C3PO, I call him C3PO because it's Chief Product Technology Officer and C3PO from Star Wars. So it's just easier. Announced the complete restructure of the product and tech business to reset and grow. And part of that was streamlining all the different roles in the business. And when we say streamlining, the example they gave was we had 220 employees in the product and tech business with 150 job descriptions, which is kind of hard to, scale and grow a product and tech business when basically everyone's very different. So part of that was realigning and consolidating that down. So instead of having 5 different analyst type roles, for example, we consolidated those into 2 job descriptions. And what that meant was some people like myself, who I had a technical business analyst role, were made redundant because the technical business analyst role was deleted and it was replaced by an analyst or a senior analyst position. And I had the opportunity to do one of 3 things. I was offered a very generous redundancy package to pay me out and leave the business. I was offered the opportunity to apply for one of the other analyst roles within the business, or one of the many other open roles across the product and tech business. And because I had been wanting to leave, or I'd been wanting to progress and take on a new challenge, and when I was missing out on roles, one of the things that I was getting feedback with is that I didn't have any formal leadership experience. So despite running teams, because I wasn't the official people leader of those teams, it didn't count as people leadership experience. So that was this glass ceiling that I'd hit in a big corporate enterprise. So I was kind of at the point, and this is why I was looking externally, I was looking to go into a smaller firm, such as I was looking at similar firms to the one I'm at now. And the idea was to go to a smaller business where they're not so picky about whether you've had the specific people management experience or whether you've just run the team. And having come from a big company, they would value the big corporate experience when you're going into a smaller business far more than someone coming from, say, a smaller business like themselves that has run a team of 4. Because they want to hire the knowledge, not just the skills. So being able to take everything that I've learned across that big corporate enterprise, how we do things, the processes that we put in place, because those big companies invest a lot of money into the ways that they work and the systems and the processes that they put in place, which is one of the reasons as to why they had that big restructure, is they had this external consultancy firm come in, do all this discovery, identify ways that we could improve and streamline the business and operate in a better way and produce this new delivery framework. And so a part of, what these smaller firms look for is people that have all of that knowledge, right? Because the company I previously worked for had paid a substantial amount of money for these consultants to come in and develop all of this material. And then I get to learn that, and I operate in that environment, and I then have the skills to do that. So a smaller business can go and hire someone from a bigger company who has all that knowledge and save the millions of dollars and, get a good portion of the upside from that. So I had the option, as I said, to take redundancy payout, apply for an analyst role, or apply for another role internally. And because I had been missing out, I was like, okay, you know what? I'll take the cash that's on the table and I'll find a new role externally in a smaller business, which is what I was leaning to anyway. All this restructure did was expedite the timeline for that to happen. It kind of gave me the push, as opposed to me sitting around and waiting for the perfect thing to come along before I'd actually then pull the trigger and make the decision. So it kind of made the decision for me. Because also having been there at that time, it was, almost, it was over 4.5 years. You can get quite comfortable with things. And, just being there and going through the motions, doing your work and, waiting for the perfect next thing and having the Band-Aid ripped for me kind of, forced me into action. But anyway, I then had a scheduled holiday plan. So my wife and I, we had booked in a holiday at the beginning of the year for a week. So on the Wednesday, I was told that I was going to be made redundant. And then on the Saturday, I flew out to Bali for a week holiday. So hence why I had the week off. Now, I had originally intended and had recorded, I think, 4 or 5 videos before going on that trip. I did those literally up until the time we had to get up. I didn't go to bed. The time I had to get up to go to the airport, I had spent the whole night working, recording those videos, so then I could edit them on the plane. But because I'd worked the whole night, when I got on the plane, it was a 6-hour flight from Sydney to Bali. I just had slept the whole time. I was like out cold. And then over the course of the week, I didn't really get around to doing too many of them. I think I got 1 or 2 up, as well as an article here and there. So I came back from that holiday, first day back on the Monday, meeting with HR, confirm my redundancy, and then it's 2 weeks to the end of the month. So then it was, part of that was the business was quite happy for me to go out and look for external roles and interview and take whatever time I needed to find a new role before the official, termination date came with the redundancy. So I ended up going through the process and found in that 2 weeks a new role at a great new company that is not just a property technology company. They're a financial technology company. So it sort of gets me out of that pigeonhole, because a lot of my industry experience up until now has primarily been based in real estate or real estate technology. So by being able to go into a company that is in the real estate industry, but is primarily focused on finance technology, that allows me to get out of that pigeonhole. And because I had been made redundant, they were able to offer, pretty much an almost immediate start date. So that was going to kick off on the 1st of October. But it did take, obviously, quite a bit of time over the 2 weeks with interviews and back and forth and interviewing for other roles. So you're not just, putting all your eggs in one basket. Combined with finding a new role, interviewing, as well as the grand installation that we had, which was on the 28th of September. So I was on the organising committee, and that was a big event. 1,500 people, not only from New South Wales ACT, our jurisdiction, but right across Australia, as well as New Zealand and overseas. So we had four events over the course of the weekend. We had a meet and greet on the Friday night, the ceremony and the installation banquet on the Saturday, and a cruise on the Sunday. And I was part of the organising committee to, that put it all together. So I had obligations. So between trying to find a new role in that 2-week period, preparing handover stuff for my previous role to make sure that, everyone had all the context that was in my head that needed to be documented, had that. And then also helping out where I could on the grand installation. I didn't have time to write my newsletters or do my videos. It just didn't happen. And I would go to bed at like 2 a.m. having done all of that and gone, shit, I still haven't done my newsletter. I still haven't done my video. And I was like, look, and I was just thinking I had been going, at least on the email newsletter front, like in terms of getting out the email newsletters, that has been, almost daily for, a good 18 months. I think it was like last April that I started. So that's been almost daily for 18 months, excluding weekends. So I was like, well, okay, a week off or a week of missing out's not going to matter. And I thought, oh, it's all right. I've got the YouTube videos that I recorded from when I was going on holidays. I'll just put those out. And then when I went to edit those, I was like, man, they're shit. I just couldn't put them out because they were horrible. And I think that must have been the whole midnight to 4 a.m. thing where I was just overtired, not making sense in what I was saying. I just couldn't put them out, so they got put in the bin. So that's what happened there. Now, that gets us up to the 1st of October when I started in my new role, and we're kind of like, well, why is it's the 18th of October now, why haven't we done anything since? Which is a fair point. So I had my first week at work, and my first week at work was supposed to be in Perth, but that's right. My new company, for example, and this is why things are a little bit topsy-turvy at the moment. My new company, for example, I live in Sydney on the east coast of Australia. My new company is Perth-based on the west coast of Australia, and there is a big time difference. Without daylight savings, because we do daylight savings in New South Wales, the time difference is normally 2 hours. And that's okay, because it's like, great. Instead of starting at, 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, I'll start at 11. And yeah, sure, I'll work, a little bit later, but that's okay. But when daylight savings kicks in, the time difference really goes. So for example, it's 10 to 12. So it's almost lunchtime in Sydney, but it's almost lunchtime in Sydney, and I'm about to start work, and then I'm going to work till 8 o'clock at night. And basically that flipped the script on when I would do things. So normally in the mornings, I get up, I take my wife to work, because I'm her Uber driver apparently. Take my wife to work, come back, I would write the newsletter between 8 and 9 o'clock, send that out usually, unless there was any sort of work things that came up. Work. It's my dog barking in the background. Miss, that's enough. Go back to sleep. I'd work, pretty much 9 to 5, 9 to 5:30, take the dog for a walk between 5 and 6 o'clock, have family time till about 9 o'clock when the wife goes to bed, because she does the dog in the morning at 5 a.m. And then between 9 o'clock and midnight, I would do the video and get the podcast out. So now with that changing, where I'm now working Perth hours, that completely threw out my rhythm, where I couldn't get into, I have to now do everything in the morning. So in the morning, it's, write the email newsletter and record the video. And then I don't do it at night, get that all out by, 11 a.m., 12 o'clock. So that completely flipped the script. And I just struggled to get into the routine for the first week of October. Second week of October happens. It's school holidays, and we had earlier in the year agreed for my two nephews, who are 5 and 8, to come down and spend a week with us in the school holidays. So my wife took the week off work, and had the whole redundancy thing not happened, I was supposed to take that whole week off as well. Except I'm now starting in my new job. So second week into the new job and working Perth time. So I was spending the whole morning with them. So I was doing the whole 8 o'clock to 12 o'clock, spending as much time as I can with them. And then, working till 8 p.m. at night and spending some time in the evening, as they're going to bed. So that throughout the second week. And today being Friday the 18th, this week, I was like, oh yeah, no, I'll get back. I'm going to be back into the routine. It's going to be good. But yeah, it for whatever reason, I just couldn't find my rhythm, and I didn't get to do it. And one of the reasons for that is in my apartment. And again, I'm not trying to make excuses, but just give context and a life update. One of the reasons behind that, and you notice why this kind of looks a little bit different. It's not too dissimilar to to what it was before, but it is a bit different if you notice to previous videos. If you're listening to the podcast version, the background behind me is slightly different. It's still white and dark, but it's kind of flipped in a sense. And that's because the second bedroom, we had a double bed set up in here, not only for the kids, but it's set up as a guest room. And my desk setup was in a corner of the living room. But working till 7, 8 o'clock at night, and I'm on Zoom meetings and working, I can't have Zoom meetings in the living room while the wife is trying to watch TV and make dinner and all that kind of stuff. So I had to move my entire setup into the second bedroom, and that involved getting rid of the second bed, bringing in a day bed that converts into a second bed if we have guests, and moving everything in here and then getting set up. And everything's not still set up. There's like a whole bunch of cables and it's still a bit rough. So this week's been about finding my setup so that I can, get these things done. Which has been a little bit, challenging. But that's kind of where we're up to now. So new job, new time zone to work in. So I've now got the mornings to do things as opposed to the evenings, which is the other thing that's interesting is, trying to wind down after 8 o'clock at night as well is slightly different. So the mental state at 8 o'clock at night is not ready to go and think about doing Masonic stuff. And, from 8 till, 12, there's still family time I need to have with my wife. There isn't the time to actually go and do that. So because like my head's been in work for the last 8 hours, it's like I don't have any of that gap. Like the dog walk in the afternoon used to give me that mental switch off from work to then start thinking about, other things. So this way it's now in the morning. So that's where things have been up to for the last month, embedding down in the new setup and with the new job, and we should be back to normal from next week, back to daily. So appreciate you guys holding on for that month and sort of going, where's Darren been? So now you know. And I'm going to change things up a bit as well in terms of we're still going to go daily content. If you're getting the email newsletter, that shouldn't change too much, but the video and the podcast is probably what's going to change. I'm going to be trying to do video podcast first, as opposed to write the newsletter and then convert the newsletter into a video podcast. I'm going to go the other way, which is going to be far easier because I'll draft out the script and it'll allow me to actually get my thoughts out much easier, and then record the podcast, which it should be a lot better, a lot more natural, rather than me just reading something. And then I'll be turning the transcript and reformatting that into the email newsletter. So that's what's happening. It's going to be good. The rest of the year should fly by very quickly because I can't believe it's actually Friday now. So anyway, that's it from me. Stay tuned and I look forward to seeing you next week on Daily Masonic Progress.